Hey everyone, welcome back. If you are new, my name is Marianne. I live here in Canada with my husband and 2 kids ages 5 and 7, and I make videos on simplifying life and motherhood through easy organization and decluttering. Today's video is a little different. We are going off script, off of our normal decluttering theme, and we are talking about our budget. I am not a financial expert. This is not what I do for a living. I am simply going to share what we do and our family does to kind of track our money and manage our money month to month. I'm hoping this might give you some ideas and tips that might work for you and your family. I have found that over the years, having like a peaceful house and a peaceful budget or money situation really go hand in hand, and they are so intertwined, so linked, that it is almost like hard not to talk about one without the other. I find they're just so connected, and having both of them under control and having them both like at peace in your mind is so valuable. It is like has changed our lives completely, which I talk about all the time. Okay. So we do our budget on a spreadsheet. If you love apps, there's the two that I hear about the most are Mint and YNAB, which is like you need a budget. I have never used either of them, never even opened them or looked at them, but I do hear like great things about them. So if you're interested in app, those might be two good ones to look up. If you use an app and love it, please comment below and like share that, because I think it's good information for other people to use. If neither of those systems sound good to you, I totally recommend using a pen and paper. For years, I did my budget on pen and paper. That's how I did it all through school, all through university. I went through years of paying for things myself and living on my own, and I bought my first house by myself, and I did all of that with like my little pen and my notepad, and it worked great. As usual, just like with decluttering, do what works for you. So at the beginning of every single year, I set up my budget for the entire year. Every month across the year, I put all of our income, I plan out all of our spending or outgoing money, so our bills, our savings, all of that. And then once I've kind of got it figured out, sort of, I'm always pretty conservative with my numbers, and I always like under plan our income and over plan our outgoing, and then usually it works out in the end. I simply duplicate the actual whole spreadsheet. I duplicate it, take out all the numbers, and then I use it as a tracker. So then as we're going through each month, each week, I put in like, okay, we've paid for our mortgage, Scott's got paid, we've like put money into our RSP, whatever the case may be. I maybe update it like once a week or something, but you could easily just do it once a month. It depends on how many transactions you have and how long it would take. I personally like to keep our transactions from our bank as minimal as possible, so there's less for me to track, honestly. If one thing to note, and I think I've talked about this before, is that Scott and I have our money completely combined, and we have 2 bank accounts. We have one checking account, which is all of like basically most of all of our transactions are in our checking account. All of our paychecks go in there, our mortgage comes out of there, we get our grocery money from there, everything is in that one account. And then we have the second account is a savings account, which is just like a general savings account that we try to keep at a specific minimum that I like to have that makes me feel comfortable. We have a TFSA, which is like my emergency fund in case one of us like gets actually sick or passes away and we're like stuck with no cash for a long period of time. So that's totally separate but for our like normal living life, day-to-day life, we have 2 accounts. Keeping your money combined is definitely a personal choice. It's not for everyone, but I will say that I found the second we combined our money, I feel like everything changed. I just felt like we could see like the bigger picture. We could see everything sort of like as one. And I never ever thought that I would combine my money. I was like very much loved being independent. I loved being on my own. I loved tracking, like managing my own money. But once we had kids, I felt like it was just too confusing, honestly, to have them separate. I'm like, I'm not gonna track who's paying for what this month. Like, let's just throw it all in the pot and we're all like a unit at this point. I'm gonna try to share a link to like a Google Docs version of this. You can get a million like budget templates on the internet, I'm sure, like on Etsy or wherever, if you don't already have one. But just to show you, so our income is split into 4 categories. So it's Scott, Mary Ann, other, and then what I call baby bonus. So Scott's pay is obviously, he is an electrician and he gets paid bi-weekly, and it's like a set amount and we know exactly what his income is going to be. And so like I can plan all that out and then I just input as he gets paid. My income, and that's exactly how my income used to be, the exact same. I would just plan out how much I knew I was gonna get, and then I just like inputted that each month as I got paid. Now that my income fluctuates and I work for myself, I actually only pay myself. The last couple of years, I've actually only paid myself at the very end of the year. So we live off of Scott's income entirely, and which is kind of crazy because he doesn't get paid a ton of money. But I found that like honestly budgeting, this is how crazy I feel like budgeting is and how important it is. We live off of Scott's income almost entirely. And then my income all goes towards like the big stuff. So if we want to pay extra on our mortgage, that comes out of mine. If we want to put money into our retirement, the kids' education funds, all of that comes in a lump sum at the end of the year from my income. But that's how we've operated the last couple of years. But that's kind of weird. And most people just have like their normal monthly income. The other category is typically if we're gifted money, essentially. Like if we happen to get, if Scott's parents give us $500 at Christmas, that just goes into other and we plop that in there. We also get the odd government rebate for things. Sometimes we'll get a gas tax money. I feel like we get a rebate like quarterly. Sometimes I think we get these quarterly payments. Honestly, they change every year. So I just call it other because I can't keep track of it. And I do not account for them. So all other is all like basically bonus money. So I don't put that in our actual set budget. That's just for tracking throughout the year. And then the last category for income, which I call baby bonus, which has not been called baby bonus in probably 40 years, is technically called child tax credit. And the Canadian government, or is it the provincial government? It's the Ontario government. The Canadian government gives us, any families with kids under a certain age, get like a lump sum each month to help basically raise your kids. So those are our like income categories and how I track our income. For our outgoing, you can see I separate it into like, okay, and all of my terms that I use in the budget are very like, take them with a grain of salt. I just threw these terms on there as I'm making this budget, but like basically this chunk, our first set of income or our first set of expenses is what I call like our fixed expenses, which like we have to pay to have water, or we have to pay our mortgage, things like that I like cannot change. We have to pay it. It's how it is. And I really have very little control over how much all of those things cost. So that's sort of what those are. So those are basically like nothing fun, nothing that I change all the time. So then our next like chunk or category of outgoing expenses are called what I call our variable expenses, which again, we have to pay for groceries, but we can kind of sort of manipulate those numbers each year a little bit more. How much you want to like categorize your spending will totally depend on like, if you're doing it to reflect on how much you spend on something, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, look, we need to rein in our spending on restaurants or like how many times I get my nails done, then you might want to break out this spending a lot more. But we have got to the point where we're very comfortable with what we spend on what and how much we spend, that I like have lumped it into larger, more broad categories now, just to make it easier on myself for tracking and for budgeting. So category number 1 for variable is our groceries and household, which I think I actually now call just consumables, because that includes like medicine, toilet paper. If we like take the kids to McDonald's for lunch, which we never do, but if we did, it would also just like come out of that category. A big category that has come up just in the last like year or two is the kids going to birthday parties and having to buy other kids gifts. Like Leo's 3 weeks in a weekend in a row, Leo has gone to a birthday party the last 3 weekends. So that adds up quite a bit. That I put under consumables. Our grocery budget currently, I think, is around $900. After the kids sort of got out of diapers and formula, there was a time when our groceries were like around $750. I think that's sort of the lowest we got to, was $750 a month for groceries for a family of 4. Now I find that basically impossible. Every reel is about how much groceries cost, and like it's the big joke slash not joke of life right now. The best part of having a budget is that we can plan for that and like just tweak things accordingly. The other big category in our like variables or like categories that change is childcare. This used to be a huge one for us. We both had 2 kids in daycare full time, and it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars, over $1,000 per month for childcare, and that was a big one for us. Now both our kids are in school. We don't have to pay for before or after care right now, knock on wood. So we also pay for summer camp for the kids. The other reason I keep this category still separate is because when we do our taxes at the end of the year, we like claim all that childcare. So we like sort of get a tax perk, a tax benefit for childcare. Next category is fuel, so gas for the cars. This is its own category because it used to be a really big category also because Scott commuted an hour each way to work, and he drove 5 days a week, 10 hours per week driving in his car on the highway. So that obviously used up a ton of fuel. So that's why they had to have that. That's why we originally had that its own category. But I still would track that separately. Now I think we spend like between $100 and $200 a month in fuel. The other 2 categories you can see under these variable, you can see Scott Mad Money and Mary Ann Mad Money. I refer to it as Mad Money. It was like a super old-fashioned term, but it is our spending money. So Scott gets $250 and I get $200 per month to use for whatever we want. I feel like sometimes when I share that, people think that seems like a huge amount. And it sounds like, oh, like you must be living the life. Realistically, like I feel like $200 per person per month is not that much if you leave the house at all, basically. Scott and I spend it on very different things. He definitely likes spending it more on like beer, golf, hockey are his main categories. I honestly don't know. He probably buys himself lunch at work. I have no idea what he uses his money for, and that's the beauty of it. I don't have to track that. I don't care. If he wants to spend like $100 on a like hockey poster, and I think that's totally crazy, it doesn't matter. We don't have to talk about it. I don't care because he can use his own money for it, and we just like no discussion about it. This is probably my favorite part about our budget. If you could do one thing is give a set spending money for each person and that you don't have to discuss what you spend it on. I feel like I probably have less spending needs than Scott. Like I don't really have like hobbies. I don't have expensive hobbies. But say if I want to sign up for the gym, like if I want to do a session of yoga classes or like a workout at the gym, that comes out of my spending money. So the $200 seems like a lot until you know everything we put into it. Anytime if I get my hair cut, which I don't, but if I got my hair like dyed, colored, and cut at the salon, that would be probably more than an entire month of spending money just on that in 1 month. If I go out for dinner with my friends, it comes out of that. Anytime I get myself a coffee, it comes out of that. If I want to take like at Christmas, we all go out for tea, the girls, like my mom and my sister-in-law and Amy Rose. And if I'm the one in charge of paying that, that's $200 right there, completely gone. Anything like that comes out of that spending money. $200 can go extremely quickly. The other big thing we do that I think helps us, for 2 of our big outgoing categories, we use cash only. For our groceries or consumables, I go to the bank at the beginning of the month and I take out $900 and I put it in our special grocery wallet, and that's as much as I have. And that is, I'm gonna tell you right now, for groceries, that is the only way I have stayed on budget for groceries. I will know for sure if I didn't have that, I would 1000% spend over budget. The other category is that Mad Money I talked about. So that's spending money for Scott and I. So when I'm at the beginning of the month, I also get out our $200 cash each, and I come home and I give Scott his $200 and I put my $200 in my wallet. Once again, at the end of the month, if it's the 15th or the 10th or the 5th of the month and my money is already gone, then I am waiting 25 more days until I get more money, and that's that. And I also know for a fact I would not stay on budget if I did not use cash. If I thought, oh, like my friend calls and said like, do you want to go for lunch? And if I think, oh yeah, like I'll just throw it on my debit card, I'm sure it'll be fine, I'm sure I've got the budget, I definitely don't have the budget. Whereas if I open my wallet, I'm like, that is the only thing that controls how much I spend for spending money. I know that a lot of people, a lot of like budgeting people will suggest having multiple bank accounts. And if that's in your bailiwick and that really makes you happy, go for it. I think any system that functions really well for you is a great system. We also we don't officially do sinking funds. However, our savings account that we have, which is separate from this checking account, we try to keep that at a certain amount. So basically, I need to have enough money in there so that if one of our cars died and we had to replace our furnace in the same year, then we would have enough. That's sort of like my mind trick of how I do it. A couple years ago, we had to replace Scott's car and we bought a new car with cash with $10,000. And then throughout the year, we just slowly put money back into our savings to put it back up to an amount that we felt comfortable with. Like I said, ours is in a spreadsheet. So I manually go in and track throughout the month. I enter all of our spending, all of our outgoing money, and all of our income. And to some, that might be like the craziest thing you've ever heard. And like, why are you wasting your time? But I find the process of actually going in and manually entering things to be like a double check system and a moment to sort of reflect on our spending so that we're making decisions more wisely for ourselves, like moving forward. And the other big category, a category in there called large purchases. And again, this is like a very large category, very broad category, but it includes like any trips we go on, any big extracurriculars for the kids. So if we're signing Annie Rose up for like her whole year of dance and it's a few $100s, we're gonna put that under large purchases. If we have car repairs, also go under large purchases. I used to have car repairs separately, but again, because we've done a budget for so many years that it's become like second nature, and we sort of like have a general idea of how much that's all gonna be. And so I feel like I don't have to be as nitpicky with our categories as I used to be. The last sort of category for our outgoing money is what I call like our savings. So that is if we're putting any money into our retirement funds, into our education funds, into our like just actual savings account. We also now have a line in there for paying off our mortgage early. For a long time, there was a line in there for paying off our debt. So if I missed anything in there, if there's anything I didn't talk about, please put your questions below. I am surprisingly super open about money. I like talking about it. I think making it this big sort of like mystery and this big like question mark for so many people, I think it adds a lot of stress to it, where just like being open about it. Like I look forward to a world where we can say to our friends, if they ask us to do something, you can say like, I can't afford that right now. And it just being like a normal thing. And you're comfortable saying that. Like I feel like it's so taboo to say like, we can't financially, we just can't do that right now. I hope this gave you like a few little tidbits that might work for you and help you along with your budget. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, like I don't even want to look at my bank account, I don't even want to look at my budget, just start. It's the exact same with like starting to declutter and clear out your home and get organized. Just take one step, just start doing it, because as soon as you do it, I promise it gets so much easier and you're more comfortable with it. And like I said, the amount of peace it has brought to our family, having like our finances and our money under control, and I can't even explain how good it feels. So go do your budget, tweak it if you need to, find a system that works for you, and if you have any other questions, leave them below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Thanks for following along. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for more, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.